This is my Mangrove Reef aquarium. It is a shallow design and I set it up in June of 2023. The original goal was a very simple shallow reef, low maintenance with easy corals, with the mangroves as focal point and a few species of fish I always wanted to care for. As you will see in this video, I've gotten away a bit from the original goal, and since June there has been a lot of changes and some minor hiccups. Recently I added a species of fish I always knew I wanted as soon as I would set up a reef aquarium again, and at the moment the setup is doing pretty well, so I felt like it was the perfect time to do a video on the shallow reef aquarium. This reef aquarium is actually standing on the background of my what is slowly becoming office/studio area. This is where I edit my videos, and I added this mic. Now this mic tells something about what's to come, but for now I'm mostly using it to improve the audio quality of my voiceovers. So I'm still trying it out, but I really hope this is an improvement compared to the previous audio quality of the previous videos, and I hope if that's the case, please let me know that I can use this one in future videos too to up the audio quality and make better videos. As mentioned, it is a shallow style reef aquarium holding close to 150 liters in the main display. There's also currently a nano aquarium connected, which is holding about 60 liters, and there's about 20 liters in the sump, making it a total of about 230 liters total. So still pretty small system. As you can see, there's a great amount of life in this reef aquarium, and this is needed for the type of fish I want and all the filter feeders. The nano aquarium is connected to the system and it is fed via the overflow of the main system, which is then split up into the nano, and the rest will run into the sump. Of course, the water that overflows from the nano also ends up in the sump. The sump is actually just a modified aquarium. It's the same size as the nano aquarium. I got them as a set. And as you can see, I simply modified it so it holds 2 media cups, one which mostly has cotton to collect any floating debris, and there's also a small bit of carbon. I use this against some of the chemical warfare of any of the soft corals, and also to give the water a little bit more clarity. The rest is very simple. There's a basket with some more live rock, and underneath it is my heater. Of course, there is a return pump, which is a very simple J-bow return, but I want to upgrade this one because it's the most noisy part of my aquarium. And as you might see, there is no skimmer. Partly because I knew I wanted many filter feeders, and also because again I wanted a simple low maintenance setup. Although, as you might see in this video, I may have gotten away a bit from that. So my main filtration is actually the cotton, which I need to change every few days. The other equipment is the sump, is the sensor for the ATO and the outlets of the doser. All the fluid containers I have hidden in the IKEA cabinet next to it. And although I feel like this needs some improving, it does look pretty well. I dose the Tropic Marine Alpha Reef. There's also the Tropic Marine Bacto Balance for carbon dosing, and I have to dose phosphates and nitrates. I'd rather use fish to supply all these nutrients in a more natural way, but I feel like this aquarium is too small to add more fish than I already have. And the problem is, as soon as I stop dosing, all the nutrients will drop to zero within a few days, simply because of my macroalgae. As you can see, I am using the Aquamedic pumps, which work okay, but I have to say the main reason for choosing these is simply because they work on the same app as my doser. I started using the Smart Drift, but I have exchanged one for ecodrift. And the main reason for this is that the Smart Drift has a pretty wide flow, and because of the shallow and long design of this aquarium, in combination with the scape I had, I just didn't get the flow in the places I wanted to. Also, I felt like these pumps would be enough, as I wanted, as mentioned, simple corals that did not need a ton of flow. The problem is I also like biotopes, and if you look at a more mangrove biotope situation, there's actually also, next to the soft corals, quite a lot of SPS. So that is the reason I exchanged one of the Smart Drift for ecodrift, and honestly it works really well. The flow is really nice now, and the corals, most of the corals at least, seem to do well with this flow. I have it on cross flow mode during the day. Then there are a few minutes of random and really strong currents to wash away all the debris, and then during the night it's actually on a pulse, so the ecodrift is on for 30 minutes, then it switches to the Smart Drift, and back and forth. So that's a bit calmer flow during the evening, and all the filter feeders can easily feed on whatever is floating around. Next to flow, light is also very important for your reef aquarium. I started by using the ATI Hydra 32, which is a great reef light. I positioned it a bit higher up above the aquarium because this is a shallow reef, and I also wanted to prevent a hotspot. But still using this light, I felt like with the design of the aquarium, just simply being so wide but also so shallow, and also with the scape, that there were a lot of shaded areas and also a single hotspot. Still, this situation probably would have been okay if I redesigned the scape a little bit and I stayed with only leather and soft corals. But as I said, I wanted to recreate a natural mangrove reef a little bit better. So there are also some LPS and some SPS, and I felt like the AI wasn't keeping up. So enter the ATI Straton. Now the ATI Straton is an absolutely great light. First off, it looks great. You can set it to whatever light spectrum you want to, and it just covers the surface area of the aquarium way better. No unneeded shading anymore, and also no direct hotspots. So the spread is now way better. The only thing it does is actually it has a lot of reflection of the light on the water surface, disturbing one of the main reasons why you get a shallow reef, and that is the viewpoint from above. When it comes to light for the mangroves, those are actually lit by an Arcadia Jungle Dawn. That's right, I use one of my terrarium lights for my mangrove. And I got a lot of skepticism of a lot of people seeing this, but until now, I've only seen great growth without any unnecessary algae growth in my setup, and even some of the corals like Discosoma actually do pretty well underneath here. I already had to raise the Arcadia because the mangrove are growing pretty well. And as you can see, there's actually already one mangrove that is getting some extra branches, which is really cool. It's such a weird idea to actually have trees in your reef tank. And if these mangrove will keep doing as well as they are now, I probably have a very good reason for a bigger reef tank. But for now, I'm just glad how everything is doing. I have mounted 2 of the mangrove directly in the substrate, and there's also a few directly on the rock structure. And I do think it's interesting to notice that the mangrove that were set up in the substrate are growing pretty much twice as fast as the ones that I have attached to the rocks. Now we have discussed all of the equipment and the setup, let's take a look at some of the occupants, starting with the invertebrates. There are 10 to 12 species of snails in this aquarium, including some necarious and conchs to clean the sand bed, and of course there is also some trochus and other snails to eat all the algae. Now as you can see, there's pretty much no real algae growth in this aquarium, partly due to the cleanup crew, but also because my Makroalgea is competing heavily with other algae. Now, as you can see, the Makroalgea doesn't look too great at the moment. A while ago, I apparently took out the tube of my carbon dosing. This impacted my nitrate and phosphate count, and there seems like there's also been a bump in the DKH. So they were a little bit pissed off, and I had some bacteria die off. Once I noticed this, I actually overcorrected a little bit, but now everybody seems to be okay. Also the flow I've adjusted a little bit, which is much better now. So everybody's doing okay, everything is starting to grow already, but as you can see there's still some left over in between the Makroalgae, but the new leaves will look great. The first fish I got were actually these pink streak wrasse, and it turns out to be a pair, which is great. The male is a little bit less shy as the female, but still I see them swim around a lot together. There's also a pair of Bengal cardinals, an absolute classic in the reef aquarium. The male has been holding eggs for a few times now, but he hasn't gone full term yet. So I am hoping in the future everything goes okay and I actually have some captive bred Bengal cardinals in my own reef aquarium. There's also this lovely looking LSD dragonet female. She used to have a partner, but she really did not like him, so I decided to rehome him. Then there is this wonderful dragon-faced pipefish, which is doing great. And I have to say, on first sight, they might look a little bit more boring compared to some of the other pipefish. But if you look closely, there's a really nice pattern and some really nice colors. So I absolutely like this one. Lastly, there is this beautiful pair of blue striped pipefish. This species of fish is actually one of the main reasons for me to get a reef aquarium. So in the beginning, the whole goal was simple mangrove reef, macroalgae, some soft corals and a pair of blue striped pipefish. But as you might have noticed during making this video, there were some changes made, and some of these changes are not directly beneficial for the blue striped pipefish. So when I finally got them, I decided to start them off in my nano aquarium and make that a more low flow, simple coral setup. The problem was, during some of the issues I had, I decided I needed to make some changes. So for that reason, I put them in my main display. And I have to say, in here they were actually doing pretty well. They are feeding with the rest of the fish, there's nobody harassing them, and they are doing okay in the flow that I have. So for now, I actually think I will keep them in the main display, and just to accommodate them a little bit better, I have actually taken out the bubble tip anemone together with the percula clownfish, taking out whatever could nettle or sting the blue striped pipefish. And I also added a few more pillars, so I can have more corals on there. And around the pillars, of course, there's a little bit less flow, so they have some more areas to hide away. As you can see, there's still plenty of space for corals, but I am just adding them slowly. Of course, a while ago I lost a bunch of corals on animals, including this beautiful blue tridacna, and my darasa also took a beating. It seems to be recovering and stabilizing, but before I add any more corals, I want to make sure that everything is okay now. And the other reason for me not to get a bunch more corals is simply because instead of having a setup full of these tiny frags, I really have a setup with a few corals that I really like and just have them grow out into these nice colonies. I think it looks way more natural that way than having all these tiny frags. When I started, one of the main focus was different species of macroalgae, and I really like how it looks. I think a reef tank without any macroalgae just looks boring. And I would really like some more species, but I think if I'm gonna add more, it's probably smarter to start up a different system with only the macroalgae, simply because it is competing so heavily with my corals. So I've decided for now this setup, the way it is looking great, but there's gonna be a little bit more corals, not directly more species of macroalgae. And again, if I want more macroalgae, that probably means a second reef tank. So yeah, this is my mangrove reef aquarium. It started off as a simple basic reef, but as you can see, it is growing into something way bigger than that. But I absolutely love it, and I'm glad I am finally sharing this with you guys. I won't do a lot of videos on this aquarium, as this is still the Terrarium channel, but I hope for those that were wondering about the setup and were interested in it, that this gives them a nice idea on how everything is running.